How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Forever Arsenal podcast. Hope everyone is all good and well out there. As usual, we are back. Me, Jordan, Lee, and James. Make sure you show some love. First and foremost, hit the like button, people, and we'll keep it moving. The round 2 of the group games are done in the World Cup, so we're going to get into them. But before we get into them, there's some club football news that I think we should touch on. I'm sure you guys want us to touch on it. One of them being the FA Cup draw, another one being Mudryk update, news, so on. But let's start with the FA Cup draw. Lee, you ever been Oxford away?
No. Like years and years ago, we played them in the league. They was in the league, but I never got to go there. Like I think Manor something there, now Manor Road, something like that. So, but I've played against the Oxford City a few times. You know what I mean? Back in the day. So, pleased, yes. When you look at the draw and some teams like Man City and Chelsea coming out, and there was a few Premier League games, weren't there? I always look at this round, and I think it's always good that you get a nice home draw against lower opposition. So, like with the Christmas period where you're playing quite a few games, which is a little bit different this season, but you know what I mean. In between those sort of like heavy fixtures, particularly what fixtures we got in January, it was nice that we could now rotate a few players and should still be able to get the job done. If we don't, then we don't deserve it. But only disappointment for me was it was away. It just makes it very, very hard to get tickets for this one. I think it's 11,000 capacity. I think it is like, you know. So, but yeah, I always like that. That's what I like about the FA Cup. You get to go to grounds or watch teams that you don't normally see. So you know, I think it's a good draw for us. Could have, as I said, could have been better if we'd have been at home. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with the draw, and obviously seeing like City and Chelsea coming up against each other. It straight away it makes the FA Cup a little bit more interesting, guys.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the fixture as well. I mean, I first started going Arsenal games in the mid-90s, and there was a lot of games where it was a local club feel and it was a nice intimate stadium. And over the years, I think the Premier League has lost that. You know, a lot of commercial stadiums and big fan bases from across the world, obviously. But going to Oxford is going to be one of those games. Nice, small stadium, local team, and yeah, I do miss those ones, and that's what FA Cup can bring you. League Cup can bring you that as well, but
Yeah.
the FA Cup is extra special being an Arsenal fan, especially. Jordan, what do you make of the tie? Oxford away, and then obviously we've got Man City, Chelsea, United, Everton, Liverpool, Wolves, Tottenham, Portsmouth.
Yeah, some mildly interesting ties in this round here. I'm not gonna lie. Yes. Well, I was gonna say I'm not gonna lie. I lost a lot of love for the FA Cup a few years back. I know that we're the record holders, and that doesn't mean I don't want us to do well in the cup. I think, unlike the League Cup, I will be a little bit more gutted if we were to lose this fixture. I would like to go deep into the competition, but personally, I don't love the FA Cup the way that I did 10 years ago. It doesn't mean as much to me as it used to for various reasons that you just flagged. So the FA Cup doesn't really get me excited in the way that it used to. But
is it on us to carry the flame, though? I'll ask that because I know what you mean. The FA Cup has lost this source a bit, but we come from an era where it meant so much that the broadcast of it started in the morning. You'd get some fan cams on TV leading up to the match. You'd get the walking through the Wembley Way area and whatnot. And now over the years it's lost. But isn't it up to us to carry that flame, considering Arsenal are the top dogs in the competition?
No, I don't think it is.
I'm trying.
I know. I mean, my question back would be why. I mean, just because we're record holders. I mean, I'm not saying don't take it seriously. I'm just saying I don't think there's added responsibility because of A, the record, or B, the nostalgia that comes with it. The flame's gone out for me. The flame has gone out. Those days where BBC would be on the bus going to the grounds and all that's gone now because football's a different animal. I think how we consume football is very, very different. I think our priorities, not all of us, granted, but some of our priorities in football are different. What makes us excited, some of us in football, is different now. So for me, it's a flame that's gone out. The FA Cup is a different animal to what it was 15, 20 years ago. And that's fine. Things evolve, things change. it's just changed into something that I don't love anymore. So no, I don't think there's a responsibility on us as record holders to particularly. I think there's a responsibility on the holders to take it a bit more seriously. I think if you're the holders, yeah, but being the record holders, no, I don't think there's added responsibility on us to
I just think
take
that
it extra seriously.
it's one of the
personally.
competitions that hasn't been tainted by the influx of money over the years, if that makes sense. Well,
I think it has, though.
It's been tainted because the Champions League, Premier League are glorified more now. But in terms of the FA Cup, it's still got that kind of historic feeling behind the league. And you talk to us.
No, I just listen to Turkish there. And I want to just come in before James does because he's a little bit younger and all that. I'm really upsets me when I hear that about, because and I'm not having a go at Jordan when he says that. It's just, it's true what you say. I think it's been a magnificent competition through and growing up through my life. It meant so much, and it still means so much to me as a fan. Younger, like meant so much. Like I remember back in the day when we was at school, it used to come on a Monday, and you used to all get round the radio, like so the teacher might put it on radio one and listen to the cup draw. It was just something. Everything about it was magic, and you'd get a good side, and you get through to the next round, and going through all the time. Going to my first cup final was an amazing experience, and just all those things about the FA Cup was just fantastic. And when you hear younger fans now, I honestly feel like people like Jordan and have missed out because I feel privileged of being able to hold it so endearing to me.
Lee, sorry, before James comes in, Lee. I mean, I'm younger than you, but I'm not that much younger than you. No, but I do remember the FA Cup in the early 90s. I grew up in that era, so I was probably part of that era where the FA Cup was a big deal. Forget the final, even the rounds before. I remember it being a big deal. Who have you got? What draw did we get? Are we home? Are we away? There was a draw pre-Champions League explosion. It was a massive draw, and I totally echo and share all of that. I just don't feel the same way now because.
I know what you're saying. I agree with you. It has diminished over the last few years. You know what I mean? So I've heard people turn around and go, when we've lost to Southampton, it don't matter. It's the FA Cup. It bloody hurt me when we lost to Southampton. It hurts me when we go out the FA Cup. I do feel it's a big competition, and I do feel it's been demeaned by the Champions League money and the Champions League. You get Champions League places and things like that. And I just think it was very, very sad because for me, it was one of them and still holds a lot to me.
I think Lee nailed it there. For me, it does matter when we lose the cup. I wouldn't go that far. For me, it does matter, but it doesn't hurt. That's the difference for me now. It matters when we get knocked out the cup. It does matter, but it doesn't hurt in the way that 15, 20 years ago, it did hurt. Sorry, James.
It hurts. It does. It hurts me in recent years because that is one of the legitimate trophies we've been able to win or compete in, I would have hoped we can compete in. Obviously, we've been knocked out in the first round. But James, being the younger fan of the show, I guess you didn't see the days of the FA Cup we're talking about in terms of the broadcast of it, how big it was. But what do you make of the FA Cup? Because I know you're an admirer of the domestic competitions.
I hate the FA. No, I mean I love it because I'm at the end of the spectrum where I missed the title wins. It kind of when I started becoming a fan. So the most enjoyment I've had and success I've had an Arsenal fan is those 4 FA Cup wins of the last 10 years or whatever. But the thing I find quite sad because I'm like Lee put it perfectly. Like, it's a shame what Jordan's saying, but you get it. Like, you absolutely get it. And I think a lot of that is dictated by the way, managers are so happy to rotate in earlier rounds and whatever. And, so much is dictated by, finishing in the top 4 or finishing the European places in the Premier League is seen by some as more important, whether it's financially or for the future of the club or whatever. But I just always think silverware for me. I think it's sad that it's so rare in football to win silverware. I mean, even as Arsenal fans, it's kind of rare for us, but at least we've got a club in a position where they might legitimately win silverware at some point in the season. I hear fans that are just what they do for one FA Cup. But we had 4 in the last 10 years, and people wouldn't describe
Spurs.
Yes, but some people wouldn't describe Arsenal's last 10 years as particularly successful. Other clubs would be like, "Are you kidding me?" I'd take relegation for one FA Cup. That's where some, and I think it's sad that there are so few trophies you can actually win, and there's 2 of them that you kind of go, well, how much does it really matter, and how much do we really care? So listen, while I can entertain the Carabao Cup debate, I'd still rather we took it more seriously, but I kind of get what people are saying with the FA Cup. I think we absolutely should be. I'm not saying don't rotate. You can rotate, you can use your squad, you can manage the season, but I still think ultimately we should always be putting out a team that can actually go and win games in the FA Cup. And if we get knocked out, we should be bitterly disappointed that we are out of it. So I love it. The last 4 cup wins, beating Chelsea in those 2 finals, the drama against Hull. Villa was the only one that was actually enjoyable in a sense of we were so in control for that whole game. But I kind of enjoyed them all in their own ways. I've been to Wembley for a couple of semi-finals as well, and I love it. I've got a lot of time for it, and I'd like Arteta to put us in a place where we've got the squad and got the depth so we can compete on multiple fronts. It's why I give credit to the likes of Guardiola, who actually have sort of been taking it seriously since they arrived as well, all these domestic competitions. But ultimately it's easy when you've got the ability to beef up your squad the way he has. But I'm all for taking it seriously.
I think James makes a really interesting point that I'm happy to acknowledge that maybe I'm a bit spoiled. Maybe my view is slightly skewed by the fact that my football club has won the FA Cup 4 times in the last 9 years, wherever it may be. So if I was, for example, a Spurs fan, then maybe the FA Cup would mean more to me, because I not only remember the historical pull of the cup, but I'd actually won it because I've never been to Wembley and won it before. Well, not for 20, 30 years. So maybe I'm speaking from a position of privilege, whereby my team has won the FA Cup and therefore I'm a little bit meh. So maybe I'm happy to admit that maybe I'm spoiled. Maybe my view is kind of like dripping in privilege.
No, well, I don't know if it's necessarily that.
Sorry, James. Lee had his hand up. Lee.
No. Sorry about that, but do you know what? It's a great point that Jordan makes. It's a great point. I just want to just echo a little story, 2003, we just lost out in the league, all right, James, if you want to go to the toilet, you can go, okay. Right. So if it was in 2003, we just lost the league to Man United, and we went and played the FA Cup down in Cardiff, and we beat Southampton 1-0. Robert Perez scored. I didn't know at the time, but that was the last time I ever went to a cup final with Dad. But thinking about, I was a little bit underwhelmed by it. I remember getting in the coach going, won the FA Cup. My dad turned around to me and said, "Son, don't ever diss a trophy. Don't, you know what I mean? Because trust me, they don't come round as long as you think." He said, "We're on a fantastic thing at the moment, winning leagues and challenging for leagues, but it will come to an end. So enjoy every single moment." The following season, we won the league, we won the FA Cup. I thought it was going to go on forever, you know what I mean? I really did, you know what I mean? And I was at an age where I was mature enough, not a kid. And then we went through years without winning a trophy again, So when that trophy came up against Hull, look at the celebrations when you go back to that Hull game. Look at I don't think it was celebrations of hysteria. It was a lot of relief in that stadium that day, a lot of relief. And I always think back to that, and I hear what Jordan's saying, but, if a trophy, be greedy, be absolutely greedy when it comes to winning trophies, because you just don't know when they're going to. And do you know what? We beat Hull, we went, the one against Aston Villa, which James makes a great point there. We dominated that from start. I still enjoyed that afterwards, because you don't know when the next is coming. I know it come against Chelsea, but you don't know when they're going to come. And so I implore every fan, don't be greedy and enjoy it.
Imagine. Sorry,
I had my hand up earlier.
You did.
Yeah, you did. It's your turn.
Thank you so much. But feel free to,
Jordan, feel free to interrupt at any stage.
Do a Jordan.
My word, this podcast.
We're trying to be nice to each other. It's difficult.
It's difficult.
I must say, for those listening on Spotify now, James raised his hand, so you can't see that. So James raising his hands. We're trying to be more polite and less Jordan. Hence why we're joking. Sorry.
Do you know what, Jordan? Thank you so much for mentioning that, because we are now officially on Spotify.
It's in.
We're up. We've made it. Oi, guys, we've made it. I think we've made it.
We can actually be uploading these earlier on Spotify and podcast platforms, so you get the opportunity to listen to this on your way to work or whatever it might be. So yeah, look out for it, and the early releases we will let you know of our socials and all that as well. But what I was just going to quickly add to what Lee was saying is, and it's sort of what Jordan's point, it means a lot to me that we're the only club that have gone a Premier League season undefeated, and that we have the most FA Cups. I think when people talk about the biggest clubs in the world, they're able to rattle off these unmatched stats, right? And Barcelona have theirs, Real Madrid have theirs, Man United will have theirs, Liverpool have theirs. Liverpool 6 Champions Leagues and all that. Okay, 14 FA Cups maybe doesn't equate to 6 Champions Leagues, but it means a lot to me that we've won it more than anyone else. Is that just me, or does anyone else?
No, totally with you. It means a lot.
I just think it's part of when you're talking about the. Sorry, Jordan, you were next. How rude of me. But I think it just adds to the whole. We're Arsenal. No one has as many FA Cups. No one's gone a season undefeated. No one's, third most league titles. They probably wouldn't use that, but you get what I mean. That kind of thing.
My last point on this would be, just imagine the equivalent podcast right now for Spurs. Imagine there's a 4-way Spurs podcast leading up to the FA Cup, this whatever round it is, what they're discussing. They'll be saying the absolute opposite. We need to win this cup. Take it seriously. Conte, put your best team out. They'll be saying, so again, I'm just acknowledging my privilege in that the FA Cup is not a priority for me, but that's because I've won it so many times. So I don't care about other clubs, but I'm acknowledging that other clubs don't have the fortune, if you like, that I have on this podcast to say, yeah, they're desperate for an FA Cup, for an FA Cup final.
Let me ask you a question, Jordan. I believe next year the Champions League spaces in the Premier League goes to the top 5. If I'm not mistaken, it's next year or latest the year after. It'll be the top 5 teams in the Premier League make Champions League. If that 5th place was given to the FA Cup winners, do you think it starts bringing back some of the draw to it, or do you think that's gone now, considering how big the other competitions have become?
I think the mere fact that you can now qualify for the Champions League, finishing 4th. So we're talking about the history of our game, or current form. I think is it's always been a bit of a downer for me. It's meant to be the Champions League, and if you can finish 4th in your league and still qualify, that doesn't quite sit right with me. Even though if we finish 4th this year, I'll take it, obviously. So 5th and the FA Cup. I've always kind of gone back and forth on this one. I don't personally think that the FA Cup should get you into the Champions League. I've not been on that train of thought. I don't think it should qualify for the Champions League. And to your question, would it make me more engaged in the Cup? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. I think I'll talk for me personally. The flame of the FA Cup for me is very much gone out. I don't disrespect it. I don't not care about it. I just don't feel the same excitement about it. And I don't think giving it to the Champions League or giving the winner a Champions League spot, for me personally, even that still wouldn't really, that wouldn't gear me up to it that wouldn't get me more excited about it. That wouldn't reinvigorate my excitement towards it. No.
You know what's funny? I mean, over the years, the League Cup seems to have got more clout. And
it does with me.
And the FA Cup seems to have lost. I mean, in Spain and Italy, they still look at their cup competitions as very important parts of the season. Over here in England, the League Cup has got some sauce, I guess, because of Jose and Pep Guardiola over the years. The FA Cup seems to have lost it. And no one, I'm not just talking about you, Jordan, because like Lee said, I tend to agree with what you're saying in terms of the flames gone out. but it seems like there isn't a way back for it in terms of getting that flame back. So that's the difficult.
I think with the League Cup, I think that the attraction for coaches in that is it gets done at the early part of the season.
100%.
Where the FA Cup comes at the business end of the season, like, you know, and I do think it's a great point being made. You know, when there are debates, and everybody has this debate. Let's be honest: is it better to come fourth or win a trophy in the FA Cup?
Yeah, it's mad to me.
This is how it's come. You know what I mean? Now you go back when the FA Cup was fancied, that was never in the conversation. You get slapped and kicked out of the pub. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's a ridiculous statement. Like, you know what I mean? But you know, even to come runners up weren't. You know, you'd want the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So I do think that's where it's been at. We've all been a little bit brainwashed with that. Like, you know, oh, it's so important to get fourth. But the greatest thing about doing DR Sports over the last couple of weeks is that you get to meet other fans of other clubs. And I was sitting down with Nicky at West Ham. And, you know, do you know he's never, ever seen his team win a cup, a cup competition, you know? And I'm looking at there and we've got people going, we'll throw this one away and all that, like, you know, and you just think, like, you know, give your head a wobble, like, you know what I mean? This is, you know, football. We're very, very fortunate to be able to support Arsenal, you know what I mean? And I know it drives us nuts at times, and it really does, but we're fortunate, you know. There's a lot of other teams in a lot worse positions than us. And, you know, I think we do take that for granted a little bit. And, you know, I see what I think if the FA Cup, I agree with Jordan. I don't think that there should be a Champions League spot at the end of it because it's 7 games and you know, you could actually not play anybody decent and get to the final and win it. You know, it has happened, you know what I mean? So, you know, but I think it would ignite the FA Cup. People will take it a lot more serious because there is those 7 games. And let's be honest, you know, I mean, it is a cup competition. People go on about, in some weird way, if you win the European Cup, which unfortunately we've not had the pleasure of doing, you call yourselves the champions of Europe, right? Well, really, you've only won. It's a cup competition. You ain't the best team in Europe, but you get that flag. You know, you get that torch, don't you, of being champions of Europe. It is a cup competition, by the way. Not necessarily the best teams win the Champions League. So I think it would help, but I don't think the Premier League is going to allow that to happen. You know, 5 teams are coming into it. They ain't going to allow that.
I'm taking a cup over 4th place. That's where I'm with James. I'll take a cup over 4th. I mean, a club like Arsenal, it shouldn't be an either or. But if it is an either or, I'm taking a cup over 4th place. And another reason why I wouldn't agree with giving a Champions League spot to the FA Cup winners is it makes it then harder for the lower league teams to progress, because then all that will happen is your West Hams and your Evertons and your Villas, they put out their strongest teams. So I think you make it even harder for the Championship and the League One teams to progress, because then if you have the carrot of a Champions League spot, everyone in the Premier League then puts their best team out, and you could argue that's the way it should be anyway.
What about if they scrapped or took the Premier League clubs out of the League Cup? Is that something that could bring it back? Because I don't care about the League Cup, so I'm thinking maybe if they took that and it's the only domestic competition, it makes it a bit more.
But I think if you do that, then you take away a lot of the revenue for those lower league clubs. A lot of those lower league clubs rely on a League Cup game against an Arsenal or a United or a Chelsea.
Yeah,
if you remove those Premier League clubs, then you make it easier for an Oxford, say, to win the League Cup, but those clubs still, there's no guarantee if you're Oxford, even without the Premier League clubs, you're going to win the League Cup. But the financial of even just 2 rounds, I'd imagine, can keep those sort of clubs going for half a season. So
look, even with Oxford now, look, they must be buzzing to have picked out Arsenal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, and let's just bring out that point. That hurts me when you say that, Turkish, the League Cup don't mean nothing, like, because I've had my best memories as an Arsenal fan. I mean that. So 2 of my best memories as an Arsenal fan with the League Cup. You know, that was beating Spurs in the semi-final back to that, and then going on and beating Liverpool, the mighty Liverpool. And I will say this, with 2 goals from Charlie Nicholas, I think that was the start of us to go and win, dominating in the league a few years later, like, you know, because we picked up a trophy. So I you know, I suppose I'm of an era where trophies, those sort of trophies matter, and I was brought up on them, and you know, I don't find it disrespectful that anybody says that. It's just I believe it is the way that football's gone. It's such a sad thing that you know there's so many different changes in football now, and do you know what? It was a great question the other day. The World Cup and everything's on now. It's you know, but international football, by the way, diminished because of Champions League, because players started going, oh, I'm going to retire now because from international football, because there's the big contracts coming out because of all this sort of stuff. I can get an extra 2 years playing club football. So everything is diminished, you know what I mean? Like because of this poxy Champions League, really. And I'm going to say it, money.
Yeah.
Europa League or FA Cup, which would you rather win? Forget just as a trophy. Let's assume Arsenal have got top 4.
FA Cup.
Europa League.
I would always go the FA Cup, but do you know what? I'm going to say it now. I think it's been too long
since you've won.
Arsenal haven't won a trophy in Europe. You know what I mean? Like too long. So I do feel that Arsenal need to win a trophy in
I just
Europe.
think I don't want to. You know, when Tottenham win a League Cup, it's all over for you.
When
did they win it? In 98 or was it 99? And they won it in 2001 or something. But when they win a League Cup, they make out that they won something. And I know, Lee, you grew up in a different time, and it did matter more then. But I grew up on Wenger treating it as more a youth cup competition.
Yeah, I get that.
In Europe, we sound similar to Tottenham in domestic competitions in terms of, we'll take the Europa League because we haven't won much in Europe, which you're right, 100%. I agree with you. But I know winning the Europa League for Arsenal, the next thing is, well, it's not Champions League, is it? And you are one of the big boys, and you have got this history, and it's not really enough. So I'd rather just the FA Cup, solidify our position in that, and get back into Champions League. And then it's not a question. Champions League or FA Cup, there's no talk about that. There's no debate. We're all taking Champions League.
One idea I've had is that to make the FA Cup fairer and better, I think, for the lower league clubs, is I would implement a rule when the draw is made. If you draw a Premier League club, you get the choice of whether you want that game home or away. So in this instance, with Oxford, you'd give Oxford the option. Do you want to, if you draw Arsenal away, you have the option of keeping it as it is, go to the Emirates, because there's pros of them going to the Emirates, or would you rather reverse it and bring Arsenal, the Premier League club, to your ground? So you have that choice. That's one thing I would weight in favour of League One, League Two, and lower league clubs. Give them that choice of, would you rather have the bigger gate receipt by going to Old Trafford, Anfield, the Emirates, or do you think you've got a better chance of winning if you bring Arsenal to your ground? That's one thing I would do that I think will make it slightly fairer to those lower league clubs.
I just fear they'll go for money every time and say, let's go to the big boy ground and get the gate receipts. But interesting idea. On the FA Cup stuff, I think, we're half an hour in and we've got to keep it moving, but I think we've kind of delved into it quite a bit, and the games are still...
Great conversation, that, by the way. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll touch in on it again.
Yeah, cheers, James. Nice one, James.
James, what is it? January, the fixture? Mid-January?
Something like that.
January, I think it's January. It's after the
helpful, isn't it?
Newcastle game, in between the Tottenham game and Newcastle. So that's 7th, is it?
And I looked at Man City's, obviously they got Chelsea in the FA Cup, and I looked at their fixtures in the first 7-8 weeks of the new year, and they played Chelsea back-to-back league game, FA Cup, and then they've got a few of the big boys in and around those 7 weeks. So it's interesting. I think, we caught a bit of a touch getting Oxford.
You'd be furious if you're a Chelsea fan.
Chelsea and Everton must be like do you know when things are not going well for you? That happens. It's not going well for Everton. I mean, Manchester United away, you can you can imagine what they're all sitting in the through the World Cup. Well, what we need is a good cup run now to just get us back. Manchester United versus Everton. You know what I mean? And Chelsea would be the same. We need to just have a good little cup run just to keep the walls from the door.
It's
Manchester
brilliant for
City
Arsenal.
versus Chelsea.
It's brilliant for Arsenal. You've got the Carabao Cup ties bringing everyone, some of those clubs back before Christmas. I think it's City versus Liverpool is one of the times.
Yeah.
You've got United having to negotiate Barcelona before they even get to the main knockouts of the Europa League. Chelsea have another trip to City. This is all good news for Arsenal, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, very, very good.
We'll
And do you know what? I didn't even realise the fixtures have changed as well. Did anybody know that? What during this World Cup? You know what I mean? We've now got Tottenham on a Sunday.
Oh yeah. But they've set up the January fixtures, haven't they?
Yeah,
And
I didn't even know. Someone said, "Oh, by the way, it's now 4:30 kickoff." I didn't even know. You know what I mean? This is just what the old World Cup does sort of take over a little bit, doesn't it? Like,
yeah. And the City game's been rearranged.
Yeah, for a Wednesday.
When is that one?
February
15th.
15th, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Home or away?
Home.
Good.
And some more breaking news that came through 10 minutes ago. Did you guys see it? Did it pop up on your phones? Kolo Toure,
Wigan, yeah.
appointed Wigan manager.
Brilliant.
3.5 deal.
Well done.
Good on him. And you know what? He's been working under Brendan Rodgers for a while, hasn't he? I mean, obviously Brendan signed him at Liverpool. He's had a few years, I think, with him at Liverpool.
Celtic.
Celtic.
Yeah, Celtic.
He started at Celtic, followed him to Leicester.
Yeah.
Obviously played under Arsene Wenger. Good luck to him. I wish him all.
I like that. I really like when I see ex-players doing their time. There's a privilege, and I won't go down the whole, racial bias I believe there is, but there's a privilege to some managers just walking into big jobs. But I like when I see managers do your time, go to the lower leagues, be an assistant, be a head coach, not head coach, a first team coach. Do your time, man. Now, whether he's a good manager or not, we're going to soon find out. He may flop, he'll be sacked, whatever. But the mere fact he's got an opportunity. Wigan's not a tiny club, you know what I mean? They won the FA Cup 10 years ago. So this is a club actually with a little bit of recent history of being in the Premier League and winning a trophy. Spurs haven't won a trophy for how long? So for him to be at Wigan, that's a decent club, man, for him to be at, and I hope it goes well for him. For him,
for a 3.5-year deal. So they believe in him.
There you go.
Yeah, security there as well. Good luck to him, man.
It makes me, because Kolo Toure is a player that used to watch week in, week out. It does make me laugh when suddenly you don't really hear about them for so long because they're doing what they do, and then it just pops up when you're out of nowhere. It's like, Kolo Toure is Wigan man, brilliant. I mean, it's just like.
Like Jordan said, I respect it a lot more than just being given the opportunity off the back of your name, which a lot of players do get. And you know why clubs do it: exposure straight away. And go on, Jordan.
And sorry, I was going to say, and I also acknowledge the hypocrisy of what I've just said, considering the manager that I've been championing, Mikel Arteta, walked into his first big job at Arsenal.
No, but it wasn't straight from it wasn't straight from player to.
No, it wasn't. But your first club, Arsenal, that is a bit of privilege. Let's be real. That's a little bit of privilege.
Yeah. Oh.
But yeah, you get my point.
Cool. Let's keep it moving anyway. James, there was some Mudryk news recently. Quotes again from the player with January approaching. I thought maybe we'll touch in on that before the World Cup review stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, the big thing was coming out of the mirror, actually, that, it's looking like 40 million. They're saying, actually, they're willing to work at Shakhtar plus add-ons, and then a few others saying around 55, 56 million. So the fee is starting to come down a little bit. And when you start hearing reports of that and you couple it with quite how public the player has been about being disappointed if he doesn't get a move this January, would start for Arsenal over being a squad player for Real Madrid. And he's really making the point, isn't he? Doing an interview with Zinchenko's wife or partner, I believe it's his wife. All these things really do make you think he wants this move and they're trying to make something happen. But I've seen many a transfer saga go on at Arsenal where you think there's just no way we're not getting this guy. The whole Emirates Stadium was singing, "We'll see you next week" to Yuri Tielemans. So by the way, I think that might happen on a free transfer, but because the reason I say that, sorry, is because reporters aren't letting it go. I mean, a lot of people are still saying no, he's still got his eyes set on Arsenal. So I mean, you've got to think there's a reason why he's doing that. And I could so see how he'd play a part in our squad. But anyway, it's an interesting one. Will it be another Vlahovic, which I think when you look back at Vlahovic, the truth is somewhere in the middle, in that we probably did want him. It probably wasn't anywhere near as close or advanced as people were claiming it to be. and ultimately it was a bit of a non-starter, though Arsenal probably would have done the deal if they thought they had any real chance of getting him. I think I sit somewhere in that middle ground. So could it be one of those? And it's very similar with Vlahovic and Mudryk, because I didn't really know much about Mudryk till the summer when we were first linked with him. There's a lot of hype around him now. People have watched him in the Champions League. He did well. Now his stock is so high going to January. Vlahovic was a similar thing. I hadn't really heard of him until the 3, 4, 5 months before we were linked with him. And now look how it's gone. So, sometimes the hype and everything, the stock can rise so quickly that actually you just need to put the handbrake on a little bit. But he does look a serious talent. I know you're quite excited about him, Turkish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar to you. I didn't know anything about him until the summer. You do a bit of research, but there's not much to take from that YouTube research. You can look into stats all you like as well, but across different
Football
leagues.
Manager.
Well, there's another one that, good old James Statman uses, but there's nothing like the eye test, and I've seen him a few times this season now to know there's a player there for sure. One thing is he tends to operate best in space, counter attacks. So it'd be interesting to see how he fares coming to a team that possession based, have started kind of alerting teams of their renewed direction. Let's say in terms of Arsenal, teams are going to come and play low block a hell of a lot more than in recent years against us. So I'd like to see how he does in that sort of a system. At Shakhtar, it seems like he's getting a lot of space. His best moments come from those counter attacks, and he looks a quality player. And I always said, if there was a choice of a forward that's going to get us goals and assists, or a midfielder that's going to add some more security, if it's a choice of the two, we should be doing both. But if it's a choice of the two, then I'd go for the goals, because I believe goals in the end will win you titles. But then you'll have people saying, but a good defensive unit and structure wins you the title. So it's hard to say, but I'll definitely take him for sure. Listen, I'll take anyone at the moment that Arteta and Edu feels like will improve the team, because as I've said before, they've done enough for me to trust them now. A lot of the players that we see in the starting 11, I had doubts about coming in, but here I am now looking at them favorably, looking at them. I enjoy what I'm seeing. I like individual players a hell of a lot more. So, I think about Ben White as an example. I think about Ramsdale as another example. Across the pitch too. Even Zinchenko coming in, I understood it, but I didn't understand it to this effect and how he would really aid the whole team. So I trust them now. If it's Mudryk you want, it's Mudryk, then I'm with it. If it's someone else, I'm with it too. Something I'm not with is no one. That's what I'm not with. I want to see someone, at least someone, coming into the Emirates in January. And by someone, I mean someone that is going to have an immediate impact as well as a long-term kind of future. And by long-term, minimum 3-4 years, whether that's a Mudryk, whether that's a Zaha, whether that's a Tillemans. I just want to see some activity for sure. Jordan, Lee, thoughts?
I'll just be brief. Sorry, Lee. I'll start by saying I know zero about this player, so I'm not going to be that Arsenal fan that pretends to know who he is, balls from the rooftops about him coming here, and then a year and a half in, he flops, and I want him at my club. We do that a lot. I talk from a position of no knowledge about this guy at all. I tend to lean to what James was saying, though, in terms of there's so much noise about this player. It makes me think that it's not going to happen. I'm quite fearful that it won't happen because of the noise. Sorry, I think you were saying, James, that you think it will happen because of the noise. I think the opposite. Sorry.
No. I've just seen a lot of noise, especially at Arsenal, turn into nothing.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm skeptical about this deal, not because of the player, but just because of how public where we seem to be linked with him. And I don't know if the club have actually come out and said they want him, or we're just linking us with him because positionally he's what we need, age-wise the right profile, and it's a January window. I don't know if we've actually, as a club, said this is a target for us. I don't know if
I don't think we have. But what I would say is, I believe that football. Listen, ultimately, human beings will do what they want, especially outside of their roles in football. But I think football clubs have so much control these days on their PR and what goes out in the media in terms of like how they want to convey a certain message, or if we've got a transfer target, how do we want to, control the way the fans find out about said target and how it's received, blah, blah, blah. We saw back in the summer, Man United were linked with Arnautovic, but there was such a backlash that they pulled out of it because the Man United fans were so against that deal. So there's a little part of me that thinks with the amount he's talking about Arsenal, and with, it would look quite silly of him to talk as much if we weren't even interested. And then when you've got, Zinchenko's partner or wife, for example, doing the interview, and asking, I can't remember, but I think she did ask about the future and his future club and whatever. I feel like there must be something in the background. Otherwise, I don't know why these questions would all be asked. So I just wonder.
Yeah, I mean, and I know what Jordan's saying. It's like it sounds too good to be true. One of the most sought after players at this moment, it seems, is very much looking forward to potentially joining Arsenal. I've read this story before, as we know, with our fan base and building up a potential arrivals. I think some players over the years have used the fact our fan base kind of, attach themselves to a linked player and promote them and make waves on the internet and social media. So hopefully it's nothing to do with that, and hopefully it does come over the line. But one thing I like is, regardless of his intent, it means us fans are talking, and us fans are talking about January, how to improve. And I just don't want to see a January like last year where we didn't improve and we come out a weaker, thinner squad. In the end, I believe it was part of the reason that cost us. But a lot will say we moved into this new season a lot fresher with the problems behind us because of the moves we made in January. It is what it is. It's a new January coming. Lee, January coming. Mudryk seems very keen.
Yeah, listen, players and all that talk to each other, don't they? There's always that. That's been going on for years. You know what I mean? Back in the day, it does happen. So I think that it's a possibility. I think that I don't think it's one that I'm sort of saying, it's eliminating it. We do need someone in that area. I always think that, if you was, I don't know, wanting to go to Real Madrid, or you was wanting to go to another club and all that, you wouldn't be going, I want to go to Arsenal. He's sort of limiting his feet. I think what he's actually doing is telling his club at this moment in time, that don't overprice me out because this is where I want to go. So I think there's little motives that maybe not saying at Arsenal. He's just saying, look, just making his club aware of what's going on, and I think this could happen. I think we 40 million is more realistic for us. If I'll be honest, I think that's a good deal if that was to come. So I'm like Jordan. I haven't really seen too much of him. When we were sort of linked with him, I watched him in a couple of international games. I wasn't that impressed, if I'll be honest. I wasn't that impressed with him. I think he played against Wales, I think it was, and I didn't think he was great. I was thinking, but listen, that don't mean nothing. So I'm pretty sure Arsenal are doing their job and being watching him every week. And that's an interesting point that you make, that he'll have to change his game a little bit. But also, don't forget, maybe looking into the future when if and when we get to Champions League, sometimes we're going to have to be hitting teams on the counter attack, and that's where he could be used. So. Maybe looking into the future of the team as well. So I think that's good. I think that, we need to get signed some players. If he was to be the only one to come, I'd be very, very disappointed, lads, because I don't think it's enough.
Enough for a league title?
For us to challenge for the title, top four.
Yeah, so that's what we're talking about here. What, top four as well, or you think?
No, I think that with our squad, it's too thin. I think that we're a couple of injuries away from dropping down like a stone. So we need to strengthen a couple of areas definitely in this January's transfer window.
Fair. 45 minutes in, people. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't already. Let's get the likes up to 1,000 as always. And if you are listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all other podcast platforms, big up you. We are now officially on Spotify. So make sure you guys check us out there if you love the show. Like James said, it'll be coming out in audio format a bit earlier than the video. And Jordan?
If you want to hear me on your way to work, on your way to your gal, on your way to your grands, on the way to the football game, and you want to hear my insightful, searing, positive, intellectual, progressive views.
Lee's just turned his camera off for all you podcasters.
You can do it now. Forget YouTube. You can do it on the Spotify. So you're welcome. Is what I'm saying, basically, Turkish. You're welcome.
Imagine you're going on your first date and you're listening to the Fourever Arsenal podcast on your way. She's like, she looks at you. What's wrong? I just don't think we're going to get top 4. I've just got. Where are you? Well, we're top. We're 12 points clear with 2 games to go, but I'm just not sure we're going to make it.
Shit, turn around. I'll tell you what else you ain't getting, a cup of coffee when like that. I say that ain't
let's move. 15 minutes to go on the pod, and we still haven't even touched on the World Cup, which is quite good because that means there's some Arsenal news to talk about, and it's positive Arsenal news. A good away fixture in the FA Cup.
Yeah.
A big player linked. James,
can I kick things off on the World Cup front?
Go ahead.
I watched the England game, and I promised myself this tournament, probably because I got so overly invested in Italy at the last one that it wouldn't be the best look if suddenly I was the biggest England fan going. But I said, look, I've been majorly critical of Southgate since 2018. Ever since that, everyone was so excited about the semi-final, and I was kind of thinking, what? But anyway. So I said I'd give him the tournament and not kind of go over the top with just one bad result or whatever. But I just think that performance against the USA gave his critics even more fuel for their criticism, even more reason to doubt. And look, we had a poor result. It's similar to the Scotland draw at Wembley, the Euro group stages. And then again, we went on to the final. We got better throughout the tournament. So it's not all doom and gloom on the England front. But I just think when you're not bringing on Phil Foden and you're just watching this incredibly static, miserable England side, with the players we've got, I get the criticism, and I'm not going to pile in. I'm going to wait for the talk, but I just get why people are so on his case. And we defended him for the Iran performance and that win, and we gave him some criticism. I thought, wow, you opened up a little bit. But now I'm hearing that Henderson's going to come in, which I assume means Bellingham loses his place. And I don't know. I just more of the same, if I'm honest. But
do you know what? I'm like today. I'm not getting excited about England's next game against Wales. I'm not getting excited about it because I'm just going to actually just say what will be. Because I got excited about after the round. I'm really looking forward to the England game, right? And then I realised something, guys. I realised something after the 0-0 drab. Right, I realised something. Who picked up England in the sweepstake after the Iran win?
Come on!
We win 6-2.
Is in full effect.
We win 6-2. He then picks up Iran, and we draw to the USA.
oh my word!
Incredible. Not only that, he picks up the dark horses, Uruguay. They're currently bottom of their group. After being one of the favourites and dark horses until Jordan picked them up. We're doomed. We're absolutely doomed.
We're not getting out of the group.
I hadn't thought of that.
That is outrageous.
That's hilarious.
All jokes aside, disappointing with England. Very disappointed. It was. Do you know what? I'm going to say it now. The 2 players that be dropped to be Bellingham and Saka. If anybody gets left out, and that is criminal as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah, I'm a little bit shell shocked with what happened the other day, but not surprised. I'm not surprised. Listen, we got Southgate's very. It is an easy group. I don't care what anybody says. It's an easy group, and then after that we got Ecuador or Holland group. You know what I mean? Come on, like to get yourself into the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
You might as well just sell fill your boots, boys, and we're making hard work of it. I wouldn't be surprised if we lost to Wales. I wouldn't be surprised if we stuffed them. I just don't know what you're going to get with England.
Yeah, England currently top the group 4 points, Iran in second 3 points, and then you have the USA third 2 points, and Wales bottom with 1 point. But like you said, Wales can pull off an upset. I wouldn't be surprised, but likewise, I wouldn't be surprised if England just see them off. And I'm with you. I think it'll be Saka that gets dropped because of maybe the last performance, not necessarily his performance, but the team's performance. If I'm honest with you, Saka was probably one of the bright sparks in a pretty dull game. But
was he?
that's not.
Was
Yeah,
he
it's not,
Turkish?
not saying much, but
He was poor from
He
what
done
I
all
saw.
right in the
but
first half. He was
Wasn't
better than
good.
most in the
Let's be honest. We praised him against Iran. He was poor against them. I mean, they were all poor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were all
He,
poor.
he was poor. So let's be fair. He wasn't good. I mean, Turkish. I'll say I'm not going to go off on one again on my Southgate defense. I think I might need to be saving my bullets for later in the competition. So I'm not going to go big on this one. But it wasn't a good performance. James makes a fair point that I think he gives a lot of his critics ammunition to. Oh, that's why we can't win the World Cup. I look at it like, look, it was a pragmatic performance where USA turned up. Someone I did talk sport overnight on the weekend, and someone phoned in and made a really interesting point about the fact that England, for better or worse, are always the team that every other team ups their game for. When nations play England, they up their game, especially if they're weaker nations. They up their performance. I spoke to a US football journalist over the weekend, and he said that performance from America is not the norm. It wasn't the norm. They don't place that level normally because it's England. They raise their game. So yes, the performance wasn't good, and on the balance of play, England were lucky to get a point. I agree with that. They were fortunate to even get a point in that match. But sometimes you just got to just take your licks. We said this about Arsenal. When you're not playing well, just get a point. They've all but qualified from the group. If England beat Wales, which I think they will on tonight, and then they qualify and they beat Senegal or Holland, whoever, that USA performance will be forgotten. No one cares. And this is my whole attitude towards cup football. Just win. Okay, they didn't win, but you get the point. They got the point that all but sees them through out of the group. So this idea that every game should be 6-2 and exciting and it should be free-flowing football, it's just in tournament football that doesn't work out. When you've got the players that Brazil have got, even they're not playing samba, sexy football for 2 games. So let's not pretend like England should be playing great football and cruising through this group because that's not England. It's not Southgate, but they are out the group, which is the first mission.
But I think what it is, it's like people are pulling so far in the other direction to the one that Southgate's pulling in, which is, I think he wants to be pragmatic. I think he wants to be safe. I think he'd like low scoring. I think he'd like clean sheets. I think all that. But we have a generation of players that are more exciting, more technical than ever before. You know, when have we produced Foden, Maddison, Mount, Grealish all in one go? You know, and then you got Bellingham in there, you got Rice, and we got technically gifted defenders like White and Stones as well. Maguire's been brilliant for England. Let's give him credit. Southgate's got that one right. So, you know, I think what it is that there is, even in every game, even the 6-2 Iran, probably not, but there's always something that just feels like he's got the handbrake on. Like even when he called up Maddison, the feeling was, you felt you had to, didn't you? You felt you really, you know, you didn't really want to, but you felt you had to. I think there's just always this kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. He's always safety first. And I don't think England fans, in a weird way, like you win 2-0, but just play good football. It's hard. He doesn't get much time with the team and all that. And I appreciate it. He's just trying to get us through tournaments, which are 7 games. And I appreciate that, but
one thing I want to mention is I think Grealish spoke about it recently. In Southgate's favor, he can't win. He can't win. Whether he picks Grealish or not, he's got a problem with him. Whether he picks Foden or not, he's got a problem with him. Maddison, same thing. In this position, you can't win. But at the same time, I believe he shouldn't be in this position, having shown what he's shown already in terms of the less expansive style of football and not really getting with the times in terms of style of play. I think he's done a hell of a lot to help England move from where they was prior to him to where they are now. But I think at the same time, to really kick on, I think they need to think about giving the reins up to somebody else that's a bit more, I don't know, maybe someone with a bit more clout in managing younger players, someone that's got a more modern style.
But Turkish, it's not just about someone that's very good at working with younger players. It's also about someone that understands also how to navigate tournament football without the day-to-day opportunity to work with these players. Where I think Southgate is really good, and I wouldn't say unique, but I think he's one of a selective group of people, managers, is that he's got that blend right, in my opinion, of being able to harness working with young players, but also navigate trying to win 7 games when you don't get these guys every single day in a way that... So Guardiola has a good rep with young players, but would Guardiola work well with a squad that he only gets to see 4 times a year? I don't know is the answer to that question, but I think you don't underestimate tournament football when you don't have players very often to be able to harness that vibe of working with youngsters, but also the hardened durability of churning out wins in a very, very confined period of time. That's a skill in itself. People often say, oh, he wouldn't get a job in the Premier League. He probably wouldn't. But then again, the Premier League management is a different skill set. It's a different talent that maybe he hasn't got. He's got a talent for, okay, I can get this group of players 4 times a year, and then every 2 years, I can try and get them to a semi-final or a final. So I don't think it's just about getting a manager next up that can work with young players, because he could be great with young players, but can they navigate 7 games over a month?
Sorry, go on, Turkish.
I just look at the international football now, and there's not really one outstanding candidate. I'd say France over the first 2 games have probably shown the best, over 180 minutes plus added time, which probably makes it 120 in this tournament. But I mean, sorry, 200 in this tournament. But apart from them, I think when you look at England's quality and players, I get you, Jordan, 100%. There's international teams that navigate their way through and pull one out of the bag, or maybe they're not the favorites and they manage to get in, having played smartly. But there's also teams over the years that have played their way, their style, and been so confident in it that they've, come out the back end with a World Cup.
If England go toe-to-toe with France, they get slapped.
Now, yes. Yes.
No. I mean toe-to-toe in terms of if they open up and try to take on France with an expansive game, France will slap them. Now, England's best way of beating France is the way they're playing right now. They might still lose, but being solid, resolute, and pragmatic, for me, is the best way England have at winning the World Cup. If England open up and play Grealish and Foden and Saka and Kane and Rice in advance and push up the field, they get slapped. France,
but that comes from mentality though, and being used to what you're used to. My thing is, you're right. Right now, France would slap England if England opened up. But had England had 2, maybe 3 years of a manager that's willing to play that style, England have the quality in players, technically as well as physically. They have the quality, they just don't have the chemistry. They don't have the I don't know, maybe they even have depth. England, when you really look at some of the players that can come in off the bench, you wonder how we're talking about them like this. But
for me, the only way, sorry, James, the only reason for me England don't win this World Cup is because of midfield. England, I think you have to have a midfield and a killer to win World Cups and Euros. England have a killer in Kane. They have no midfield. They don't have a midfield good enough for me to win this World Cup. That's the only thing I think prevents England winning this. But it's not Southgate. It's not even their defense. Their defense is good enough for me to get to a final. They've not got a midfield. They've not got a midfield. Italy and Croatia knocked out England in the semi-final of a World Cup and the final of a European Championship final because both those teams have a midfield. They can control games. England don't have a midfield to control games at the highest level. Against Senegal, against Poland, against Peru, you can get away with it. Against the top teams, you have to have a midfield that can control a game. And that, for me, is the one Achilles heel for England, in my opinion.
Cool. Listen, we're coming up to an hour, so we're not going to touch too much in on the rest of the fixtures, but everyone in agreement that France so far look the best outfit, or has anyone got another shout?
They are in terms of... What's that, sorry?
I was saying Brazil. I was impressed with them yesterday. Found another way to win. And they're playing teams that are twice now. I watched Serbia the other day open out. I actually see Switzerland open out a little bit, but they've played 2 teams that have said, right, we're defending deep, dropping in, we're going to make it very, very difficult, and they've found a way. What happens when the team opens up to them? I'm a little bit fearful of, so. But that's the way they're going to play. That's how they're going to have to get through this tournament, and I think that they look very, very good, to be fair.
France are the one you probably trust the most in terms of the experience blended with the quality, and they've been there and done it. They feel quite solid and resolute, but they've got goals at the same time. But I think the most impressive outfit by a country mile is Spain. I just think when you watch them, they look good. A team. They've got a footballing philosophy. They've got players that can come in, and it doesn't feel like they're changing their style in any way, shape, or form. It's funny. Gary Neville got laughed at for saying that the squad looked like it lacked goals, and they scored 7. But I actually kind of got what he meant, and I think, I kind of get they don't have, they had to bring on Morata, right, to essentially just get the ball into the back of the net, and that's not someone you're used to relying on as a out and out goal scorer. But I just think the way they pass and move, the technical quality they've got, and I know that's not everything in football, but I feel like if anyone is to click and then go out like another level, I think it could be them. So I'm massively impressed by Spain.
Spain, Brazil, France, Jordan. Anyone?
I'm with Lee. I think Brazil. I think front to back, they've got the most complete squad. Look at their goalkeeper. Look at the striker options. When Fabinho can't, I'm a big Fabinho fan. When he can't get in that midfield, you know it's good. And defensively, it's probably where they're actually weakest, yet they're still quite strong. Their fullbacks aren't great. Telles and Sandro are probably where they're weakest, but those two fullbacks still probably get in most international teams. Do you know what I mean? And Thiago Silva, is get-atable, but he's still better than most as well. So I think Brazil, and they've played, as Lee says again, they're the only team that have played 2 good teams. Serbia and Switzerland are 2 good teams, and they've found a way to beat both of them. So that's where I would give Brazil the edge so far.
Get-atable. I like that one. I'm going to use that. Let's round it off with comments of the day. We said we'll all pick one out, and we all have. I'll start. I've got one of my own. Turkish, definitely not a morning person. Looks extra grumpy, and that's coming from Mr. Danny Pack. So yeah, Turkish is definitely not a morning person. I've told you guys this. I'm not a morning person, but we did start this one at 8:30. So let me know what I'm looking like on the Grump commenter scale or whatever you want to call it out of 10. I think I've done well this morning. Go on, over to you, Jordan.
There was a few that were kind of praising me for the first time this season in my on the last pod, which I thought was lovely. Don't like it, but it was whatever. I'll deal with it. But my favorite one was why is Jordan looking like he's in a women's refuge? On the last pod, I was in a hotel. I watched it back and I was like, yeah, it does look like a woman's refuge. I like that one. Anthony, big up.
Clockwise.
I like that one.
Lee?
I've gone for Joshua Reed. I knew it was curtains for Uruguay as soon as Jordan picked them for the dark horse. And he said, right, they are bottom of the group.
They've not scored.
Not third, not second, bottom. Big up, Joshua, and England have derailed as well, so there you go.
James, round it off for us.
I've gone with another great show, informative, entertaining, and often hilarious. Is from Spence. Thank you so much. He says the chemistry among the 4 of you is a wonderful thing. I am missing James's pillows, however. Don't worry. We'll sort something out.
We'll sort something out. He's going to send you his pillows. For fuck's sake.
The old fluffy pillows get a mention. Love it.
Listen, people, hope you guys have enjoyed. Jordan, Lee, James, big up as always. We've just passed an hour. So love for giving us your time. People, make sure you hit the like button. Get it up to 1,000 likes. Leave your comments. We'll be back at the end of the group stage, which is this Friday, I believe. So Friday night or Saturday morning, we'll be recording our next pod. I'm leaning towards Saturday morning, considering I've got Big 6 Friday night. But it depends on the team, and it really depends on when Jordan can fit in, because he's always the fucking one got me up. But yeah,
sorry.
We'll see.
Oh, I want to say big up you, Turkish. I saw your Big 6 show featured on an American network last week. So I want to say big up yourself. I mean, you clearly prioritized that over this, but we won't mention that. But big up yourself, and that was a big.
He got up at 5 for that one, Jordan.
Oh, did he now? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right,
but he weren't saying he was the morning man then, was he?
This is how rumors start, mate. Don't listen to James. Don't listen to James. That was 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I did that. Look how fresh my face was looking.
No,
But
big
yeah,
up yourself on that one.
love for that, Jordan, man. It was massive. I can't lie. I didn't actually deep it until it came out, but yeah, it was quite big. And love to Dan Bowens for the hookup. But yeah, big up everyone. Hit the like button on the way out. Leave your comments as usual. We're back this Saturday at some point. Make sure you're subscribed, notification bell on, and you'll know exactly when the next pod is. Look out for all the content coming this week. The watch-alongs on DR, they've been banging, so make sure you guys are subscribed over on DR too. And yeah, show some love all round people. James has got his own channel, James B, Lee Judges TV, Channel 4, Jordan over there, and TalkSport as well. You can find Jordan everywhere.
I'm everywhere, man. I'm everywhere. Unfortunately, I'm everywhere.
Now he's on
Sorry.
Spotify as well. You're not going to fucking
Yeah.
hear the end
No
of him.
escape.
Love for the love, people. We're at. See you on the weekend. Peace.